Hello, all. You may have heard in the spiritual life, gratitude gets a big rep, and you see it across different traditions, but I think it's very often slightly misunderstood. It's a bit like forgiveness, not as challenging as forgiveness, but often misunderstood, and people will utilize it for a bit, and then something goes wrong and they think, I'm not going to bother with that anymore. Very often it's because I don't think we're getting quite deep enough with our gratitude practice, so I wanted to lay out a few pointers here. I think gratitude is especially important because the human mind tends to seek problems. The mind is a problem-seeking and solving machine. But there are some problems in life that can't be solved. And sometimes in the modern world, we got our attention dragged in by the problems of life, which embed us not only in the problem, but our story of the problem as well. This can lead to very negative mindsets, a very negative inner environment. Gratitude is very deeply healing in this regard and will allow you to approach life in a much more rooted, peaceful fashion. It's not about not taking action, it's about taking right action at the right time, being still as you truly are. So again, just to be clear from the top, when we speak about gratitude, it's not about trying to become this perfect, endlessly positive person where everything's great all the time. Sort of like Ned Flanders in The Simpsons, hidely-ho and all this sort of stuff. That's not real life. And if you try to live like that, you drive yourself mad. And if you know somebody who lives like that, they're often hiding a shadow side subconsciously, which is going to be doing quite some damage in their life. So again, it's very important to understand here, the aim is not to try and be without frustration or anger or pain or suffering. They're part of life, and part of gratitude, I think, is accepting these things. Not, oh, great, I'm feeling angry, but just letting it be. We'll get to this down the line, but the deep yes, the saying yes to life is very healing. If you don't say yes to life, you swallow it down and you create all sorts of subconscious demons that live inside of you because you haven't worked through an active experience of life. When we say no to life, we block the natural flow of energy, and that can get quite challenging for us. Now, I think this is really important to stress because I've seen this a lot in my own life with fellow travelers in the spiritual life. They will do really well with gratitude and then something really bad will happen and they will just say, F it, what's the point if life is just going to be so harsh? We're not understanding what gratitude's for if we're still thinking that. It's not a zero-sum game of, if I think happy thoughts, nice things will happen to me. This is very worldly, sometimes called prosperity gospel stuff. The idea of, the spiritual life is about just making you awash with gifts and abundance. That's not really it in my mind. The real wealth is within, no matter what's going on externally. There's nothing wrong with wealth externally. There's only getting lost in wealth that's the issue. So again, just a final note on that. This is not some self-help trick. It's not just about reframing bad things. Oh, it's raining, but at least the plants will get watered. That's not what we're going for. These things have value for putting your mind in a better state, but they will collapse when the going gets tough. And as we all know, the going can get extremely tough in life at times. So again, let's be clear. This is not about looking on the bright side. My dog just died, but look, the sun's out. That's silly. That's denial. It's not depth. Depth would be mourning the death of your beloved dog, and that would be perfectly normal. So again, if that's what it's not, what is gratitude? Well, the way I've understood it and found it beneficial in my own life is a deeper movement towards a natural stillness within that effectively calms your nervous system so you can say yes to life directly no matter what comes up. And this is the really key thing to address here. This is a really key part of every video I make, which is remembering it's not all about good things for me, Richard, as an individual. Now, we all have that pull to the ego. We can all get lost in it. But true gratitude isn't about being happy for something. It's from something. And to be more specific about what that thing is, you could call it the natural energy or radiance of being, or God, if you like religious language, itself. So again, we could say in the Christian tradition, it would be something like the recognition of God's love already within you, the recognition of God's presence, Now, this is especially important because through the spiritual lens, you wouldn't so much view reality as understood through the mind. It's through the pure experience of being, the mystery of being itself. So it's not about thinking so much as allowing that mystery to percolate inside of you. This is where the great work of English mysticism comes from, the cloud of unknowing. You don't have to know, This is a trick of the mind, thinking you have to work everything out. This is more a letting go to the natural energy of life. So as we're moving towards here, this isn't just about putting yourself in the right frame of mind. It's about a recognition within. And from that, we could say that gratitude naturally flows. And from that, we see the real beauty of life. And this can be things as subtle as, again, I always prefer subtleness in gratitude rather than big things. Not, I'm thankful because I got my promotion at work. All right, that's fine on a surface level. But in a deeper context, it will be we're thankful for the air we breathe, for the miracle of the body we have, for the loved ones, these sorts of things. The deeper, the more simple the gratitude is, the more powerful effect you'll find that it has when you recognize it within. So how do we get there in terms of practical path and steps we can take? Well, again, the first thing is just this level 1 gratitude that I mentioned at the top. We're aware that this isn't the real deal, but it's all right to start with it if you've got nothing else. And this is the classic stuff. I've got good food, I'm not hungry, I've got a warm bed, I've got friendly faces around me that I know I can call. I love my dog, if he hasn't passed on, these sorts of things. So we know that this is just a practice, but it's fine at the beginning to get the hang of what we're moving towards. This isn't yet the real depth, but it's just priming the mind. And I do believe that sometimes this can be helpful as a step 1 in just priming the nervous system, shifting yourself away from that world of complaining and being bitter, if you like, and the cynical nature of the mind. The mind tends to quieten when you're in a state of gratitude. Now, the idea is that, like I say, that you can try and simplify what you're thankful for over time, going from things such as, I love my bike or my car, to the more simple things, breath, body, the ability to perceive beauty, the ability to perceive itself. These deeper, more fundamental questions of life, which we overlook in modernity, are actually huge. The secret of life is in those things. And as we start to do that, we can deepen even more, and this may happen over a number of weeks, into a gratitude for existence itself. So that is not so much, again, thankful for the contents of life, but for the space of life in which the contents exist. And this will lead us to the fundamental questions of mysticism. That's when we do realize, we say in the modern world, there's no miracles, I don't believe in these sorts of things. And maybe you don't have to believe that people can, walk on water or the rest of it if you don't want to. But there's no doubt once you start going this deep that there is a miracle, and that's life. Nobody knows why we're here. No new atheist can explain that. No great mystic can explain it. In fact, the mystics would be closer because, of course, even in the name, mystic comes from mystery. It's a mystery. And it's quite frightening when you first come up against it because the mind cannot figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. As you fall into the mystery, it does become more and more peaceful, that recognition, because we're trying to understand it through the human mind, which views things linearly, i.e., there's a beginning and an end. So what came before the beginning? This is the mind's way of understanding that the true reality is much more deeper than that. It's about the nature of presence itself. And as I say, this will lead us into a deeper realization stage. We begin to see the miracle, that life is, that you are, and life is actively experiencing itself through you. So again, this will mean that the external stuff, the career, the success, the failure, the tragedy, becomes the shell of what the true life is. And you probably know already, but this is why many people go towards the contemplative traditions. They become monks and so on, because they don't want to be lost in the shell anymore. They want to be in the true world, the inner life, at one with God at all times. Now, I think that is a noble path, a wonderful path, and many people who've been on that path are, of course, great coordinates for us to read because they're great guides. But you don't have to do that monk-like path if you don't want to. The point is to recognize the raw center of being, the source of life beyond the individual self, and then return to the world with that energy into your individual life. So you can carry that deep stillness, that gratitude into your ordinary life, and you'll find you won't be nearly as perturbed by the actions of life. They will still come, they'll still pull you away, but the more grounded we become in this practice, the less that will happen. Nobody's perfect, in this regard. Again, that's why the monks go off into, their hermitages, and you have these month-long times where they're just basically, it's just them and nature, and they might whisper to each other very slightly because they just want to take it all away. Now for most of us, we're not going to be able to do that. So we need to be able to come back to this stillness, this gratitude practice, so you're living this awake, grounded energy that's sourced from the very core of your being. And the gratitude will naturally flow from that. And you'll see with that, of course, that, we're not doing it for this reason, but things will improve around you. Relationships will improve. Things won't bother you nearly as much. You get a parking ticket, it's busy that day, you're late. These things stop mattering so much. It doesn't mean you don't try. It doesn't mean you don't bring your full energy to life. It just means you're not getting quite so lost in it. So again, it's really opening ourselves up to that fundamental yes to life, whatever happens, however brutal it is, because it's when we block it, that's when the trauma starts, that's when the pain starts for many people. So again, there's a key link here between gratitude and the notion of surrender, which is of course a classic spiritual motif. Again, I want to be very clear, gratitude isn't something that we practice so much, it's what remains, it's the natural recognition of the true energy of life, which is your real self beneath all of the noise of the world. So hopefully this will aid you in your spiritual life, in your spiritual practice. As always, if you want to go that bit deeper, you can always do a course. I have the 30-day daily disciplines course out at the moment, working on another one. Bringing up another group coaching soon. If you're interested in one-on-one, do reach out to me. And do subscribe to this channel and join the Substack too. I'd like to see you there.